What's going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris, and welcome to the Author's Lounge. I feel so good because I got a man here who represents something much bigger than oneself. He is here as the digital marketer for Draft2Digital. His name is Jim Azevedo. Welcome aboard, sir.
Osiris, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. So normally I do a whole introduction for the authors, but I mean, you're here under the conglomerate of Draft2Digital, and you all don't need an introduction.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, a lot of people, I feel, from the marketing standpoint, that like there's so many people who still have never heard of Draft to Digital. They don't know what we're about. Even authors, like they're like, what? Because a lot of authors, they think Amazon is the end all be all for all things books and publishing.
Yeah, I know for sure. So yeah, we'll hop into that. If
All
they
right.
don't know you or know your company or your business before this, my viewers will know who you are and what you all represent well after this. So
Well, I
really quick, I
appreciate
just
that.
want oh yes, of course. So for those who are new to this show, the purpose of this show is to bring on guests, whether they are authors, they're publishers, agents, writers. They don't even have to be within the book publishing business, but a writer as a whole and has experience in that regards, creatively and turning it into some sort of a business. This is to help provide a form of education through their experience and through their journey to serve as an educational point of view for the newer generation. So, for lack of a better terms, this is for the newer generation of writers. And so Jim has agreed to come on board. I was gracious enough to be able to be a guest on their show, and he was kind enough to spare me some time and join the platform. So thank you so much, Jim.
Of course. Of
Yes, sir.
course.
Special shout out to Dale L. Roberts. Again, my man
Yeah,
has come
Dale.
through. Yeah, that man, he works magic, man, and he's provided a lot of opportunities for many people, and I'm one of those who reaps the benefits of his generosity. So thank you. So, man, let's go ahead and get started. So,
Let's do it.
Draft to Digital. So, in your own words, what does the conglomerate of Draft to Digital represent, sir? For those who don't know.
Yeah, so Draft2Digital is a publishing and distribution platform for self-published authors. So we help authors, whether you are an established, international best-selling author, or if you're a first-time debut novelist, we help you publish your books as ebooks or as print-on-demand files. We make it super easy, just real step by step by step. And after you have your books kind of uploaded to our website, the real value that we provide to you, the heavy lifting that we do for you, is to ensure that your books get distributed everywhere that readers go to find books. So that means all the major retailers like Amazon, Apple Books, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, but also in the library platforms as well. So Overdrive, Baker and Taylor, um, Gardeners, Odillo, Hoopla, and many, many others. So again, our mission is to help authors become more successful, but also help you kind of put your books in all the places where readers go to find books. For those of you who are newer to the industry, if you hear the term, going wide, what does going wide mean? Well, that's what going wide means. It means distributing widely, like to Amazon, but also beyond Amazon.
Mhm. Now, one of my other questions is because regarding Amazon, many people say, you know what, KDP or Kindle Direct Publishing,
Yeah.
that's the way for me to go. But going through Draft to Digital, right? And I know you all have gotten these questions a lot, but just for the sake of
Sure.
asking the question, if someone is self-published, right, through not sorry, through KDP, they
Mhm.
have their ISB and everything affiliated with it, but then they go through Draft to Digital and they upload the manuscript and they go through the whole process, and you all also upload to Amazon. Do they have to delist their book from KDP, knowing that it's going to go with you all, or how does that work, sir?
No, they can have the same ISBN. The only difference is if it's an ISBN for like see their print on demand file, that'll require a different ISBN. But if it's an ebook, they can have the same ISBN for the ebook to go through Amazon and to go through Draft Digital and all of our other retailers that we partner with
Okay,
as
good.
as well. The only time it's an issue really is if an author decides to utilize Amazon's KDP Select option. KDP
Hmm.
Select is Amazon's exclusivity option that means that if you go through Amazon KDP Select, that means that your book must remain exclusive to Amazon for a period of 90 days. That means
Mhm.
that you can't sell your book anywhere else, even your own website.
Yeah, and that could be a deal breaker for some people, but like going through you all could also be something that is helpful because you all produce in the masses to include libraries. And I think that many authors are they're stuck in this mindset, and not all, but many. And this is not a knock to anybody, however you
Sure.
whatever their mindset is, by all means. But there is a place for libraries. There is absolutely a place for it. So, what was the logic? I know we spoke about the founder, right? Like, what was the overall logic on we need to include the partnership of libraries? Why? How did that come about?
Gosh, that goes back a long time.
Uh,
I have to tell you, originally, so I came from Smashwords. I started at Smashwords back in 2011, and then Smashwords was purchased by Draft2Digital in 2022. When Smashwords first got its start, Smashwords was very pioneering. It was kind of helped ignite the whole indie publishing revolution.
mhm.
And at the time, we didn't think that Smashwords was launched as a way only for authors to self-publish an ebook and to sell it at the Smashwords store. There was no talk of distribution at the time
Yeah.
until an author said, "Hey, why don't you ask, some of these stores like Barnes and Noble if they'll accept self-published ebooks?" And Smashwords founder is like, "They're never going to say yes to accepting self-published ebooks from us, but I'll
Uh-huh.
ask." And they said yes.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and actually, it was the Sony bookstore was long gone now, but the Sony ebook store was the first, followed by Barnes and Noble, who said yes to self-published ebooks. And then once Barnes and Noble said yes to self-published ebooks, then all the other retailers just started opening their doors because
Mhm.
it wasn't about that limited physical shelf space anymore. Because with virtual shelf space, it's virtually unlimited. So they welcome self-published authors with open arms. That was kind of a long-winded answer. I hope I answered
No,
your
no, no,
original
that's
question.
perfect. I think it's
Oh,
important
libraries. I'm sorry.
oh yeah, yes, no, but I think it's important to mark the journey too. Like, there is a lineage with this, and it's for good reason, So speaking of Barnes and Noble, authors who've gone through Barnes and Noble Press, right, who
Hmm.
try to get their book into the bookstores, many of the Barnes and Noble, and I ran into this issue myself, with many Barnes and Nobles. They do the consignments, but many don't. Many say, "Hey, if your book is non-refundable, we can't take it." And that's the unfortunate
Yeah.
reality if they go through Barnes and Noble Press. However, going through Draft to Digital, is that the case? Are the books still marked as non-refundable or non-returnable items, or
Non-returnable.
is it pretty much, hey, once you go through us and we put it in the bookstore on your behalf, it's fair game?
It's not in the bookstore, and we don't enable non-returnable right now. And the reason is it can be perilous for self-published authors because if a bookstore were to order, say, 100 of your books, but we're only able to sell maybe one of them, bookstores have the option of packing up those books and sending them back to the publisher, which would be you, the author, for a
Hmm.
full refund. That means you're on the hook to purchase all those books. That comes out of your pocket.
Hmm.
Um, Not to mention the shipping that's involved with that too. But here's the cool thing, and I think this is something that some self-published authors don't understand. When it comes to print on demand, your books are still in the catalogs that a store like Barnes and Noble would order from, just like they would order from books coming out of Penguin Random House or Simon and Schuster or Hachette or HarperCollins or any of the big five publishers. You can be in those same catalogs. And if you're a local author, you can walk into your neighborhood Barnes and Noble store, and let them know that your books are in the Ingram catalog that they order from, that you're a self-published author.
Hmm.
Would they would they consider putting that book up for sale on consignment for a local author? And you can do the same thing at libraries through print on demand. And a lot of libraries, they lend out ebook reading devices like Kindles and other devices as well. And there are so many wonderful library reading apps too, and your books can be a part of that as well. Um, did that answer your question,
Yes,
Osiris?
sir. Oh, it
Okay.
answers it. It answers it in great detail, and so that because that was also like a thing that I had wondered too about. When it comes to just any sort of consignments, because the non-refundable piece, when I was trying to go through Ingram Sparks, was something that I had learned about. Like, hey, here's the risk with that, and some people may have the pockets for it, or even if they have the pockets for it, who wants to owe money back for your product if it's in that? So there is kind of give or take when it comes to that line of work, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, there's a learning curve there. And there was a learning curve for me there too, because I came from the ebook side. I didn't understand the whole print side of it as well. Um, for authors who are drafted digital authors now, we did a three-part series on print on demand and the differences between print on demand and ebook publishing. And for me, just researching and writing that three-part series, it was eye-opening for me because I didn't understand the returnables aspect of it.
Hmm.
um, because they're all just they're digital files, whether it's print on demand or whether they're ebooks. And why don't they just work the same?
Hmm.
Completely different worlds, because you have the digital world and you got the physical print world. And even though they're both digital files, when the books come to market, they are there's just a different ecosystem there. There's a different supply chain, and so that makes things much different, whether like you're ordering proof copies or author copies or copies for a bookstore.
For sure. Now, speaking of which, right, so like for authors, right, going through KDP to request
Yeah,
like author copies, going through your platform, well, not yours, but you represent it. So going through Draft2Digital's platform, right, to request digital copies, for their author books, right, for the author books, authors requesting digital
yeah.
physical copies of their book, right? How does that work? Like for example, going through KDP, you select it and you can order your own, but going through you all, how does the author, and it's probably more simplified than what it sounds like, requested in the same manner, in the same fashion?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You just order, like, you can order a proof copy, and that's just one copy of your book, so that you can ensure, like, when you go through the print on demand process on your screen, you can flip through every single page digitally, so you can see a proof just to ensure that your formatting is exactly as you would expect it to be for your finished product. But then you can order a physical proof copy, and we'll ship that over to you, so you can hold it in your hands, check out the cover, check out the spine, and check out every single pages individually on a physical copy to see how that proof copy works. And we're not going to stamp it with like proof copy either. And then we'll send that out to you. Um, and the same way, you can order author copies. And author copies are books that you would use for, like, say you're speaking at a conference,
Mhm.
Osiris, or you want to sell some books out of the trunk of your car, or
Yeah.
do something like that. You want to have a bunch of books. The nice thing about print on demand today is that you don't have to order 500 copies or 1,000 copies and have boxes in your garage. You can order 10 or fewer if you wanted to.
Right. Yep. And then that's old school. That's an old school method too. Like, hey, come to my garage. I'll sell you some mixtapes, or I'll sell you some cassette
Yeah,
tapes from my music. No,
that's right.
yes, sir. No, I think that's wonderful, right? But so, as authors, just in general, and I think this is really huge, right? Where people have the opportunity to go to somebody. I think Dale referenced it as an aggregate publisher, right, or publishing wide,
Mhm.
and be able to go to a platform like Draft Digital and know that your stuff is going to be available in the masses.
Mhm.
Um, some people kind of narrow it down to just kind of one or afraid. I think it's important when you know how the business, at least you have a general idea of how it works. Going through someone such as Draft Digital can cut back on a lot of time on being able to manage this kind of housed into one. Now, when you all publish it, right? Um, Under publisher, let's say use Amazon because Amazon is pretty common
Mhm.
used website, commonly used website. Under publisher, under self publisher, of course, is whatever they put the name under. However, if it's through Drafted Digital, is it going to be Drafted Digital's, or will it belong to the publisher who, I guess, who created the book?
It could be under your publishing house name as well. Sometimes and some retailers do it differently. Like they'll list a supplier, which would be Draft2Digital. But if you have like your Osiris Inc. would show up in many of those cases.
Okay, no, that's good. And I know this answer, but I'm asking as
Okay.
if I'm like a brand new author, like listening to Draft2Digital about the rights. Authors, they retain all the rights to the book going through you all still.
Absolutely, positively. Self-published authors, like you are the publisher, you retain 100% control over your rights forever. And that's the biggest benefit of being a self-published author. You
Hmm.
retain that 100% creative control over your book. That means that it's up to you, Osiris, for when you want your manuscript to graduate to become a published book. That also means you get to it's up to you to decide what that final cover art is going to look like. It's up
Hmm.
to you to decide what the price of that book is going to be. It's up to you to decide where you want that book to be distributed into. And you nailed it. Like you nailed it when it comes to distribution,
Hmm.
because that's even if you don't work with Draft2Digital, I would still encourage any author out there who's considering self-publishing to work with some distributor,
Hmm.
because the biggest value a distributor will have for you is just massive, massive time savings. You have the ability to go direct, to Apple Books or Amazon, Barnes Noble, and all of them. They all have their self-publishing arms, but you have to figure out the different formatting requirements, the different uploading requirements. Whereas if you go to, like, say, a Draft2Digital, you upload your manuscript once, you choose the different library outlets and retail outlets you want, you click OK, and you're done. Like your book gets proliferated out to not just those books here in the US, but into every store internationally that every single one of those retailers and library channels operates. And we operate in
Yes.
about 180 different countries and territories. So getting your books out there is huge for you.
That's remarkable. And so the key. Oh, sorry. You look like you about to say something. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to get back to, because you asked me about libraries and why should authors care about libraries
Oh,
now.
yes, sir.
Yeah, and the reason authors should care about libraries, and the reason we care about libraries so much, is because libraries represent such an incredible discovery engine for authors and publishers, because there's so many readers going to libraries all the
Hmm.
time. I go to libraries constantly. I've got, I think, 3 or 4 different library apps on my phone, because
Hmm.
you start buying books all the time, and some books I purchase as audiobooks, some books I purchase as ebooks, some books I purchase in print because I'm just weird. But I'm always put in front of authors who are new to me, and that same kind of magic can happen for you in your books as well.
That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. And libraries have been around for such a long period of time. I believe if, let's say, for example, if bookstores were to just completely be wiped out of business, I think libraries would still stand. And
Let's hope so. They kind of tend to be under attack these days.
yeah, oh yeah, no, tell me about it. This is just a theory. I don't have
Okay,
any sort of
I'm with
stats
you,
or
man.
logistics.
I'm with you.
You have to go off of it. No, for sure. But one of the things I wanted to point out, when it comes to just wanting to go that route on going through Draft to Digital or just in general, right, is the amount of time that is saved. And I think that is so important for people to kind of conceptualize, right? Is the thought that I spend so much, well, not me, but I spend so much time with researching this and doing all X, Y, and Z. How can I really like maximize my time? And I think it can be leveraged going through Draft to Digital. Now, are you all responsible for, let's say, like the keywords and the categories and where it may or may not rank for places such as Amazon, or is that still up to the author?
Yes, that's up to the author. So when they go through the publishing process through Draft2Digital, we just need, like, you can upload a Microsoft Word doc, and you don't have to go through any long formatting guides. Just basically, like, if you have a chapter headings, we can see that. We can automatically put that into a table of contents for you,
Hmm.
and then you'll have the opportunity to go through and make sure that that formatting is correct for both your ebook and your print-on-demand file. But as you're going through that, it's up to you, the author, to put all that metadata in. Metadata is just data about your books, and that includes your price and your title and the categories that you mentioned before. And you go through all of that stuff yourself. Your primary category, whether it's fiction, and then you go into your subcategories, paranormal, fantasy, and just on down the line. And don't skimp on that stuff, because the more of those categories that you put in, you're kind of widening that audience down to that target audience, that specific reader that you're trying to attract.
Hmm. That thing. one of the most helpful pieces that goes into just this as a whole is just being able to just collaborate with people, and have
Yeah,
partners of people who can educate. And I think it's important to know, like, just giving your experience in this in the industry of how much, like, how much knowledge truly matters, and being able to truly, like, leverage these things. Now, over in your show, we were talking about networking, right, and the
yeah,
importance of networking, and that this us coming together was a result of networking with another source with through Dale, right? But just
yeah.
networking in general brings people together. So I'll just ask you a couple of questions before I let you go, good sir. But
Mhm.
as far as like networking, how does it's different because normally when I'm asking authors, hey, how does networking work for an author? But as a representation, right, of Draft to Digital, like the conglomerate of Draft to Digital, how how can people, or where can people go to like meet up with a representative of Draft to Digital in person?
Yeah, well, we go to a lot of conferences. Gosh, I think we might go to more conferences than any other service provider or distributor in our business. Gosh, I'm thinking, do we have a list of those? Um, that's the easiest way to find this is at conferences, and we're kind of all over the place. And maybe we'll put down a list, or we'll talk about conferences that we'll be at. We will do that through our YouTube channel. That's
Hmm.
probably the best way. Networking is so important, as you already mentioned, Osiris. So if you have, I would say, if you're a newer author, um, just you can do some quick Google searches like writers conferences in my area, or what are the top writers conferences, and just try to nail it down to conferences that are in your area. And
Hmm.
maybe some of those conferences are online. BookFest is a conference that comes to mind. BookFest is a free online, so it's a virtual conference that happens in the spring and the fall. That's coming up pretty soon, and they get, Draft2Digital will be there. There was a lot of service providers outside of distribution who will be there that we really respect and that we look up to. So things like that. Then you can go to these conferences, you can go to these events. You don't have to break the bank doing that, but it's a good way to kind of get your foot in the door and start meeting who some of these companies are who can help bring your book to market. It'll help you learn about the business, but it'll also help you kind of figure out, who are the people that I need to be talking to as well.
I love that answer because, and I'll say why. Because sometimes when people say, "Hey, you just got to network," it's not narrowed into a specific target.
Yeah.
And I know we spoke about targets earlier, but it's not specific. But talking about conferences, going to a writers conference or searching in your area and look for conferences, because that's where a lot of them meet up at. Most of the
Mm-hmm.
time, if it's not a conference or like at a book festival or a book fair, most of everyone in the industry, they're busy working on a book or distributing a book or doing something, and the best place to meet up are at these conferences. And
Yeah.
I'm sure we would have likely met each other at the conference. Like,
It
it's
makes me
it's crazy.
laugh every time.
It's wild. Like, oh, you were supposed to be at the San Francisco Writer Conference too. Maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year.
For sure. But okay, well, final question I'll ask you before I let you out of here, sir, is how can people reach you, or well, reach Draft to Digital?
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, you can find Draft2Digital by going to draft2digital.com. That's DRAFT, the number two, DIGITAL.com, draft2digital.com. It doesn't cost a dime to have an account at Draft2Digital. So Draft2Digital is free. Can I mention that, like, how it works just real quick,
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Osiris?
Oh, I forgot to ask that question. That's
Yeah,
important too. Yeah.
yeah, no worries. So, like, there are no upfront costs for the publishing or for the distribution. The only way Draft2Digital earns revenue is by taking a 10% commission off of book sales. Another way to look at that is that we don't earn a dime unless you do through the sale of your books. So that's why we have a ton of resources out there to help you sell books, to help you learn and to educate you about the business and about, how to sell your books at market. So
Oh yes, that's perfect. Draft2Digital.com. And don't worry, I will ensure that that website is linked in the description of this video. And speaking of which, this podcast will be available not only on YouTube, but it's going to be available in snippets as well as the entirety of this episode on YouTube, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, LinkedIn, Threads. Substack. You can also catch it on my website at osirisinc.publishing.com. You can also, I'll also send it out through my to my following in my newsletters. And in addition, there's going to be an audio based version of this as well, and that's going to be available through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, you name it. All of
It's gonna be out
the
there.
major spots. Yep. So it'll be available, but you want to listen to this episode and get some knowledge and some insight on that, especially if you are interested and wanted to go wide with your publishing and save time at the simultaneously. That's key. Because time is of the essence, and you will catch yourself doing a lot of too much, and you'll burn out. It's inevitable. You will fizzle, and as long as you have some help, as Jim is mentioning, Draft2Digital is a significantly it's wait no, not that, I'm using the wrong term. Draft2Digital is a wonderful source to utilize to spread yourself wide without spreading yourself thin. I like that.
I like
Cool.
the way you put that. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah. I like that as well. It just kind of rolled off. Must be the poet in me. I'm kidding. Well, any closing remarks, sir, before I let you go?
No, just thank you for the time, thank you for the opportunity, and to your listeners and to your viewers. I just want you guys to know that you can do it. Like, we've worked with authors. My favorite part about this job is working with an author who has never before done this, and then reconnecting with that author a couple years later, and they've hit some bestseller lists somewhere. So believe in yourself. You've got this, and hopefully our tools can help you.
I love that. That's such a powerful, positive message to lead on, to leave on. So, hey, I'm not gonna steal his thunder on that. That's a great way to close out the show. So, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune into today's episode. Thank you so much, Jim, for coming by, and thank you being a representation of Draft2Digital. Thank you all so much, and hey, I'll catch you all next time. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.